13,500 for a 48 horsepower twin. Okay, I confess I did tick all the option boxes to make a point, but they're only what I might call reasonable options. You know, the blue, white and red trophy paint scheme, soft luggage, spoked wheels, heated grips, crash bars, nothing your average buyer wouldn't carefully consider. But add them all up and suddenly you could buy, well, I don't know, to take another freshly announced bike, the 150 horsepower Honda CB1000 GT. I know, completely different bikes, but it made me think, why are cheap motorbikes so expensive? But before we dive into that, let's have a look at the new Baby GS, because it is a great looking bike with a lot of decent equipment on offer. So, a brand new bike built for BMW in India by TVS. Now, I don't have any problem with that at all. Mrs. RM was built in Brazil and she's never gone wrong, so the location of the factory, to me, not important. You get a new 420cc parallel twin producing 48 horsepower at a relatively high 8,750 RPM and 43 Newton meters at 6,750 RPM. Now, the engine uses a 135 degree crank pin offset and a single balance shaft to give a characterful, uneven firing note, apparently, while keeping vibrations low, and fuel consumption is a quoted 3.8 litres per 100 kilometres, which is 74 mpg UK, 62 US. So even with the relatively small 14 litre tank, you should still be able to do 350 kilometres or about 220 miles. Not bad. I think the low weight plays a part in this. BMW is quoting a wet weight of just 178 kilos, which is exceptionally light for an adventure bike, albeit a small one. The wheelbase of just 1465mm, that's nearly 10 centimeters less than my Tiger 900, for example, will prioritize agility, and seat height is a fairly reasonable 845mm with a low seat available, I believe. The chassis is a tubular steel space frame with the engine used as a stressed member. Front forks KYB 43mm upside down. Rear uses a hollow cast aluminium swing arm with a directly linked KYB central shock, so decent suspension. Brakes, you get a single 310mm Brembo monoblock up front and a 240mm bi-brake rear disc. Lean sensitive ABS, dynamic brake control and dynamic traction control as standard. Electronics include their excellent, but it has to be said, slightly aging 6.5-inch TFT, multiple ride modes, rain, road, enduro, enduro pro on upper trims, shift assistant pro, and on top trim an easy ride clutch, which, if I've understood correctly, is a kind of clutch assist to avoid stalling and to make pulling away from standstill easier, although you do still get a clutch lever for extra fine control, which can be useful off-road. So overall, BMW has given us a good looking, compact, lively twin-cylinder bike with good power to weight, genuine GS chassis and decent long travel suspension, class-leading electronics and connectivity. The seat height might be an issue for smaller riders, and the tank could prove to be on the small side if those consumption figures turn out to be a little bit optimistic. And then, of course, as you alluded to at the beginning, there's that price. And so moving on to part 2 of this video, why aren't cheap bikes cheap anymore? A decade ago, the idea of a brand new, well-equipped mid-capacity bike for less than, say, 5,000 euros felt plausible. Royal Enfield's strategy and similar emerging market manufacturers proved you could design simple, rugged machines and sell them at a low margin. That mindset has shifted over the last couple of years, though, as manufacturers have reappraised the segment. All bikes now come loaded with kit. Ever more stringent emissions regulations are becoming increasingly costly to comply with. And then there's the post-COVID inflation and rider expectations. If QJ Motor can give me a heated seat, for example, then I absolutely want one on my BMW, Triumph or Honda that costs twice the price. A couple of years ago, Triumph's Speed 400 series demonstrated how a mainstream brand can take a low-capacity platform and dress it with contemporary styling, dealer support and warranty. The Speed 400 launch price sat around the mid €5,000 mark in Europe, but it came with showroom polish and a launch premium. Royal Enfield's new Himalayan 450 arrives closer to 7,000 or 8,000 on the road in some European markets. That's a big step up from the old affordable Himalayans. Chinese manufacturers like CF Moto are giving us increasingly competitive bikes like the 450 MT, or Ibex as it's called in North America, and at prices that undercut many Japanese and European rivals. Yet, even those prices have crept up. Dealer listings and official offers for the 450 MT commonly sit now in the €6,800 to €7,500 band in Europe, and the upshot is a compressed pricing landscape. European and Japanese marques now feel compelled to add technology and perceived value, which pushes up their retail price toward but not below that of newcomers. Two technical drivers explain the inflation. First, regulations like Euro 5, Euro 5 Plus force more complex and therefore more expensive engines, catalyzers, sensors, etc. And second, customers now expect modern electronics, TFT displays, ride modes, IMUs, cornering ABS, quick shifters, connectivity, as well as higher grade components like Brembo brakes and KYB suspension, and this even on sub 500cc bikes. Each item is expensive in small volumes and gets added to optional packs, turning advertised from prices into showroom starting points rather than what you realistically end up paying. Strategically, legacy manufacturers, BMW, Honda, Triumph, Yamaha, Suzuki, etc., are therefore up against a dilemma. Keep margins by charging a premium for brand, dealer network and proven durability, or reduce margin to chase volume. Honda's corporate briefings show a two-track approach. Protect core margins while investing in products and production efficiencies to remain competitive globally. And this has been translated over the past couple of years by ultra-competitive pricing. I'm thinking here of the Hornet 1000 or, as I said, the recently announced CB1000 GT. The result, inevitably, is a paradox where affordable has become a positioning exercise rather than an absolute. You can still buy a near cheap new bike. CF Moto and a few Chinese marques remain very aggressive, but once you add the technology, accessories and dealer delivery that modern buyers demand, prices for small, ostensibly basic models can easily approach the psychologically important €10,000 line. And this new BMW F450 GS is a case in point. Small engine capacity but premium components and a very thick accessories catalogue. The headline €7,500 start, which is your baseline really, is there to bring the punters into the dealership. Realistically, I think we all know this, the well-equipped bike that you want and the one you end up paying for is usually a lot more expensive. So there you have it, a very attractive baby GS for a third of the price of the big R1300 and with similar equipment and options. No cruise control though, which I know is going to put many of you off. Is 48 horsepower enough? Off-road, yes, absolutely. In fact, it's a boon. Who wants a 250 kilo behemoth and 150 horsepower to control on a slippery gravel track? So am I going to downsize? Sell my Tiger 900 and get one of these? No, for two reasons I suppose. First, my Tiger is probably only worth about €14,000, and by the time I spec'd up this GS, paid for insurance, road tax, aftermarket accessories like bike-specific racks for my SW Motec panniers, I wouldn't really be any better off financially. And the second reason is that as good as this GS will no doubt be on short, semi-urban and off-road trips, it won't be as good as the Tiger on the motorway. Small screen, no cruise, and down on power. But what do you think? Does this new GS do it for you? And are you thinking of getting one? Where are bike prices heading? Let me know in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching.